I'd like to say I'm surprised by submitting this to you, but it's also Waffle House, so I'm actually not. Mid-August of this year, my girlfriend and I had the bright idea of going to a Waffle House nearby because we had never been to one. Even though we had never been there, we had heard countless stories about what a shit show that place can be. And oh boy, were those stories true. We went later in the evening, 8:30 p.m. to be exact. When we got there, it was mildly packed and we only had to wait about 5 minutes before we were seated. I'll be honest, I was finally excited to try the food out, given how many horror stories I had heard about the chain. Our waitress was great, and the food was great, so there were no complaints there. The issue arrived when we were waiting for the check. This guy, he couldn't have been older than 40, is sitting at the counter, sort of slumped over. I vaguely remember seeing him when I walked in, but now he had my full attention. He was slumped over his coffee, and drool was pouring from his mouth. I thought, okay, if this was the strangest it was going to get all night, then this experience wasn't too bad. While I'm signing the check, one of the waitresses went up to the man and gave him a little tap. He looked up, shocked. The waitress said that he would need to leave if he couldn't stay awake at the bar. In my mind, that was completely reasonable, as there were children also in the Waffle House, and it doesn't make for a good experience. The guy, instead of acknowledging what the waitress said, grabbed his hot coffee and threw it in her face. You ever have one of those moments where what you're seeing you can't believe? That was me. I could not believe this man had splashed scalding hot coffee on this waitress. It all happened within seconds. She fell backwards and screamed. Immediately, the guy looks over at me and my girlfriend. I stood up as to protect her, and he grabbed a butter knife from the counter. Without any reason or logical thought, the guy literally lunged at me. Like he jumped up, almost hitting one of the light fixtures, and landed on me. My instincts kicked in and I just absorbed the blow. We fell back into the table behind us and started wrestling. For a guy who was barely conscious seconds ago, he was abnormally strong. He was able to stab my left bicep with the butter knife, and while it didn't pierce me, it hurt like hell. During the scuffle, he was yelling that we were all extraterrestrial beings, and we need to be stopped. I literally thought that this could not be my life right now. As I'm trying to hold him off from trying to grab my eyeballs, a few other customers came over and pulled him off. One guy held his hands and grabbed the butter knife, while 2 others held his neck and torso. One of the waitresses had already called the cops. The entire time we waited for them to arrive, the guy would not stop yelling about us being aliens and how he needs to kill us all. Once the cops did arrive, they cuffed him and put him in the back of a cop car. I found out a bit later that the guy had fentanyl in his system and was severely hallucinating. I'm not justifying his actions because of that, but I can now see why he did what he did. The waitress who had the coffee thrown on her was also rushed to the hospital for burns. From what I heard, she's doing okay, but definitely traumatized. And of course, this all happens on our first ever trip to a Waffle House. So just a warning to anyone else brave enough out there to even step through their doors. Please, think twice. Alright, listen. I've been to almost every breakfast place in America, but Waffle House is just its own entity. To clarify, I was 26 when this happened, and this was by far the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to me. I was in North Carolina, helping my parents move into their new place, and it was brutal. For 2 people, I never would have thought they had so much shit, but that's besides the point. I finished up helping them unpack everything, and it was a little past midnight. I had an hour drive back home and was craving breakfast food. Well, what do you know? Good old Waffle House was only 5 minutes from my location, so I thought I'd stop in real quick, grab a bite to eat, and then head home. I get there and it's pretty much dead. There were maybe 5 cars total in the lot. I go in, take a seat by one of the windows, and order my usual, the All-Star Special. I even asked for a coffee too, because I would need the energy for my drive back home. I pay my bill and exit the Waffle House. I take one step outside and see someone standing directly on the hood of my car. I'm so pissed at this point because I do not have the mental capacity to deal with an unhinged individual. I go back into the Waffle House and tell the staff that there was someone standing on my car. One of the cooks, I'll call him Jay, came out to take a closer look. He sees the guy standing on my car and said, "Oh shit, he's back." Confused, I asked him what he meant. I'll keep it brief, but Jay went into detail about how that guy out there every once in a while comes to the Waffle House late at night and disturbs the customers. The cops have been called on him plenty of times, but he's never technically done anything wrong, just frightened customers with his weird antics. I asked Jay if I would be in danger going out to my car. He looked at me and just said, "He's a wild card." So now I'm in this dilemma. Do I go out to my car and confront this whack job, or just pray that he leaves on his own accord? Mind you, the entire time he was just standing on the top of my car, making direct and deliberate eye contact with me. I'm fed up at this point and just say fuck it. I'll go out there and tell him to get off. I exit the Waffle House and walk slowly towards my car. It's late as shit at this point, and the only lights are from the Waffle House's interior shining outside. As I get closer, I noticed he's an old guy, dressed in a flannel fuzzy coat with this stupid red hat. "I know this is your car," he said. I said, "Yeah, it is. I'm not trying to start any trouble, but you need to get off so I can go home." The guy looked down at me and started making this fish face with his lips. Then he said, "Bloop, bloop, I'm a fish." I thought I stepped into the Twilight Zone at this point. I stood my ground though, and told him if he doesn't get off my car, I will call the cops. He laughed at this and said the cops won't do shit, and I know it. He started jumping up and down on my hood. He was jumping so hard that I could see it started to dent. Just then, something flew out of his jacket and landed on the ground near me. I saw that it was some sort of handgun. I grabbed that, pulled out my car keys, and jumped into my car. The guy was still just laughing and jumping on my hood as I locked the doors. I turned on the engine, yelled at him one last time to get off the car, or I'll drive with him on top of it. I was so scared because I did not know if he had any other weapons on him or anything. But he just kept jumping and laughing. I said fuck it and just peeled out. The dude fell back against my roof and rolled off the back. I looked in my rear view and saw the guy get up and start spinning in circles, yelling up at the sky. Finally safe and distanced away from that nut job, I took a look at the gun he dropped more closely. It was a fucking toy gun. I threw it out the window and drove the rest of the way home in silence. I had to get my car repaired, and explaining to the detail people what had happened wasn't fun. But my lesson was learned. I will never, and I mean never, step foot on the property of a Waffle House ever again. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something in the air. But that place just radiates for the lunatics to come out. Fuck that guy. Let me start this off by saying, fuck Waffle House. I used to work there just before the pandemic started. And for context, I am a 27-year-old female. My time working there was fine. I got along with my managers and co-workers easily enough. It was the customers that really put a damper in your day. If you've never been to a Waffle House before, the best way I can describe it is that it's the Walmart of breakfast diners. You see all sorts of people come in, from the ultra-rich to homeless people on the streets and everything in between. Also, if you didn't know, they're open till 2 a.m. in the morning, and you can only imagine what kind of people are awake wanting pancakes at that hour. Well, anyway, I was working a late-night shift in the end of October. I remember it was October because it was already so cold outside, and we had little Halloween decorations set up inside the Waffle House. Well, it's just past midnight, and we're pretty steady, which isn't too surprising. I'm standing behind the counter when I saw this man walk through the front doors. He instantly caught my attention because, as I mentioned, it was October and super cold outside, and he comes in wearing nothing but these green shorts and a wife beater. Mind you, I had 3 layers on because I was that cold, and in walks this guy like it's the middle of summer. But I don't judge and figured maybe he's warm-blooded or just got off work and didn't care about the cold. He takes a seat by the back window, and I go over to take his order. When I spoke with him, another thing that caught my attention was that he had this bull nose ring. It was actually pretty gross because I could see clotted boogers on it and knew right away that this guy's hygiene was subpar. But I pushed all those judgments away because, I want a tip. Oddly enough, he only ends up ordering a coffee, black with no cream. I go to bring him over his coffee, and when I see him again, this guy was shirtless. Like he had pulled his wife beater over his head and was wearing it like a bikini bathing suit. I'm completely shocked and perplexed by this. I told the man he would need to put his shirt back on the proper way, or I would have to ask him to leave. He took a sip from his coffee and said, "Sweetie, I ain't trying to put nothing back on. In fact, I'm trying to take off more." He then proceeded to pull down my shirt, nearly exposing my breasts to him. I slapped his hand away and ran to the back to get my manager. I was on the brink of tears, telling him what the man had just done to me. My manager comes out and the guy's gone. We could see him walking across the parking lot and into the night. I told the manager that the camera should have caught what he did and we can call the police. Now, this next part, I can't confirm or deny what happened, but here's the timeline. Shortly after we called the cops, we were informed that on the way, they had found a body on the highway. He was dead and only wearing boxers. Again, it was severely cold out that night, and the person did die from hypothermia. When I gave the description of the man, it sounded like it could have been him. The cops couldn't give me much details other than that they would update me if they found the guy or not. Well, of course, I was never updated, and I'm pretty sure they just dismissed my case. But I strongly believe the body they found was the guy who assaulted me. They found the body 10 minutes away from our Waffle House, and he only had on boxers. If it was him, I might sound messed up for saying this, but I don't care that he died. I mean, he assaulted me. And it wasn't long after that incident that I quit Waffle House and started going to school to be a dental assistant. Never again will I enter that place, not even if it was the last place on earth and I was starving for eggs and pancakes. Never again. Hey, what's up guys? It's Spooky. If you've made it this far, congratulations, you survived. If you did not know, I have an Instagram. Follow me on there so we can connect. And I also have a Patreon. On there, you'll have direct access to me and can see the upcoming videos, polls, and soon-to-be exclusive stories only shared on there. If that's something that interests you, please consider joining. That's all I have for you guys tonight. Stay spooky, and I'll see you in the next video.